Come in, Dr. Kreuzer. Califer's spoken to you many a time.
Mr. Corner, aren't you? Spoken of you, too. The only real reporter the Globe has, he says.
He doesn't say it to me. Please, have a seat. Califer must be back soon.
Haven't you seen him this morning?
Not since breakfast. He said he had an appointment with you and Methadrine. Sounds like a girl.
Not unlike Mr. Corner. Makes a shy man talk. Califer left me 2 hours ago. I must get hold of him. Have you a telephone here?
I wouldn't use it if I were you. It's a party line. Unless it's an emergency. Is it?
I don't know. Wish I did.
What's happened?
He took something from my desk which I need back.
Stole it?
No. The patient doesn't steal. It was my fault.
What's wrong with him, doctor?
I don't know.
We all have moods.
Some moves are blacker than others.
But he's good at his job, or he wouldn't have stayed 5 years on the Globe.
When he takes a walk, where does he go?
He used to go along the Goose Market when he had the dog, or down along the Trent.
Hasn't he got the dog still?
Ran away.
I'm sorry.
He didn't seem to mind.
I wonder why he didn't tell me about it.
Maybe it wasn't important enough.
You live with him, Mr. Corner. What is important to him?
I wouldn't know.
Oh, well, you finally be down to my digs, Dr. Kreuzer. Digs, the word sounds like an animal hole, doesn't it?
I wanted to see the kind of place you live in. It's been an honest.
A lodging for the night, the slow and dark hours. For me and my colleague Corner. I'm glad you've met Corner. You read him every day. Listen to this. Councillor Worm's tour in Europe. Councillor Worm, who has just returned from a visit to Paris and Le Touquet, reports that the French feel deeply. The text is Corner's. The headlines are mine. I wanted to call it A Worm's Eye View, but the chief sub-editor is against gaiety on the Globe.
There's a telegram for you on the mantelpiece. He's always liked this doctor after he's seen you. She seems to be a nice girl.
She can let a man down, too.
It's from my mother. It's just as I told you, in between trains, this is how they always visit me. Lucky Nottingham's a junction. In the summer term, I never see them. I suppose there's a better connection.
Still excited, Califer.
Well, I've remembered something, haven't I? Corner, have you ever had a toy spade? Doctor, are all your patients as anxious as I am to be cured?
They don't come until they want it.
You should try them, Corner. You might stop throwing away half-smoked cigarettes at 3 and 10 pence a packet. Might lend color to your reports of council meetings. A jab in the arms, a little nausea, and then a desire to talk till the cows come home. What time do the cows come home, Corner?
Depends what you mean by cows. Califer, if your mom's coming, I'm going to my room. She always makes me feel like a cub reporter. Bye, Dr. Kreuzer.
Goodbye, Mr. Corner.
I'll come for a chandelier myself, one day.
It's not only the methadone that's exciting me.
Why are you really here, Doctor?
I have a sense that I failed you today.
You? Why?
You came to me with a kind of hope.
Oh, and I left with a kind of hope, too.
We're not in my consulting room any longer. Perhaps you can speak to me more freely here.
I've talked myself dry. 6 months of talking. It hasn't gotten us very far. Perhaps what I need is action.
What action? What's that you're playing with?
A toy. Something I picked up. We've been talking about childhood so long, you mustn't mind if I start playing with toys again. Not a spade this time. We've exhausted the spade.
Oh, no, we haven't. You brought it up, and then we stopped. You had an important engagement. Don't you remember?
There's no point in the spade. Every child has one, or so I've read. I've read a lot about childhood. It helped fill the gap.
How?
Well, I built up an imaginary childhood. That plot of garden, seed envelopes with colored pictures on them. But then there's more important seeds in unlabeled packets. Like the best wine of a region that comes in unlabeled bottles. Those seeds lay in boxes, and one would steal them from the gardener, and one never knew what vegetable or flower would grow, and the boxes of those lay on the earth in the potting.
Go on.
I can't. It's too hot here.
Sit down. I'll open a window. In what book did you read about the potting shed?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Perhaps it was a real potting shed.
Yes, a real potting shed. And a month ago, I began to walk down the laurel path towards it. It was dark. I was carrying a bowl of water for my dog. And I didn't even have the courage to come within sight of the door. Father, can't you tell me?
You called me father.
So I did. But he's dead and he'll never tell me now.
Relax. Try not to worry. Think about something else. Forget about the potting shed.
Forget it. I had. All those years. But you can't forget forever what exists. Sooner or later, a smell, a touch. Our footsteps make such a pattern on the earth that sooner or later, in 30 years, they'd have to tread the same path again. Wouldn't they?
I believe there's nothing human which can't somehow with patience be recalled.
And do you believe in anything that isn't human?
No, I don't believe. Sometimes I doubt my disbelief.
What could have happened to me, Doctor? It was so terrible, it wiped out all memory. I was a boy, Doctor. What a boy can do is very limited.
Perhaps it was something done to you.
Then why the disgrace? I know some parents make a fuss about the little sexual games their children play, but it couldn't have been my parents. They were never worried by anything human.
That word human again.
Well, God was a taboo. My father wiped out that superstition for his generation. Poor father. I'm glad he didn't realize how it was beginning to return. Like memory. We weren't allowed ghost stories either, Doctor. Do you believe in ghosts?
No.
Or the soul?
I've never understood what that word means.
If I had a child, I wouldn't forbid fairy stories. If a pumpkin can turn into a stagecoach, then even this dreary room, that tablecloth, those awful ornaments could be a palace with limitless corridors.
Did you ever want a child?
No, I didn't want to create new convicts for a prison. To have a child, you need hope.
There seems to be plenty of hope then around us, judging by the birth rate.
There should be a different word for that kind of hope, Doctor.
It's enough for most of us.
I'm not sneering, Doctor. I want it to be enough for me, too. Why isn't it? What happened to me? In that shed?
For 6 months now I've been trying to find out, and you haven't given me a clue.
I was beginning to remember.
Yes, outside that door. But what happened when it shut behind you? Was there a lock, a bolt, a catch? Answer me quickly.
I don't know. I can't remember.
Think aloud, invent. Tell a story, any story, a fairy story, whatever comes into your mind.
Our Father, Method, hallowed be thy name.
You've seen many other sheds like that, haven't you? Besides the one you fear so? Describe them to me, anything. The spades leaning against the wall, the smell of mold.
It's as if there was only one place like that in the world. The walk was called the Dark Walk. The shed door was never painted.
Are you inventing?
I think so. I don't know. I kept my spade in there with the real spades, because in that way it no longer seemed to be a toy. Oh, but that was years before, and something made a pattern on the path as I walked, like a snake crawling beside me.
A snake?
No, not a snake. It's just... But when I came inside of the door, my heart was throbbing. I stopped to get my breath. My head ached too, but I wasn't unhappy anymore, just afraid.
You've been unhappy. Was someone waiting for you?
Yes, or something. I can't get through that damned door. Doctor, we can go on for a lifetime like this. I'll never get through that door.
And when you came out again?
I don't believe I ever did come out. Sometimes I think I'm still lying there.
Lying?
It was only the first word that came. Doctor, I'm tired and my mother will be here any moment.
You're frightened of making an effort to remember. I can't cure you. Perhaps there's nothing to cure.
Nothing to cure? What do you mean?
I can only cure the irrational, the exaggerated, the abnormal. If a man is melancholy because he's lost his leg, I'm not called in. He has good reason.
You think I may have good reason?
Yes, but whatever happened behind that door to give you the reason, the mind boggles at that.
Right. So we give up. It was my last fling, too.
Don't be a bigger coward than you need be.
Trying to make me angry, doctor? It won't work. My plan needs courage.
I was only talking, Califer, to make you talk. I never give a patient up.
Has no one ever given you up?
Yes. What?
He got tired of it?
Yes.
Did he find another cure?
Not what I can admit is a cure. Perhaps this may interest you. He killed himself.
Oh,
He was my son.
I'm sorry.
He wouldn't be treated by anyone else. I tried to make him go, but he was afraid. He was never afraid of me. I had to go and tell his mother. We hadn't met for years. She took it badly.
How long ago?
10 years. Since then, I swore I'd never leave a case unfinished. Even if a patient tried to give me up. They often do.
My mother, Dr. Kreuzer,
Before I go,
I don't understand.
you acted very quickly. Suppose it was when I turned to telephone. I should have examined my desk before you left. My tablets, please.
Suppose I won't give them to you.
It's not very important. I'm trying to save you from a stomachache, that's all. They aren't poisonous.
Then why did you follow me here?
I couldn't allow a patient to leave me ever again in that state of mind.
Here's your mother, Califer.
Here they are.
James,
Hello, Mother.
is Anne here?
No,
I lost her at the station. I'm sorry, James, interrupting.
no, we've finished, quite finished. This is Dr. Kreuzer, Mother.
He's not ill, is he, Dr. Kreuzer?
No, he's not that kind of doctor. He makes me talk, that's all.
That's supposed to be a good thing nowadays.
Your generation believed in letting sleeping dogs lie, Mrs. Califer.
Was that so wrong?
You were clever at keeping them asleep. Sometimes they wake your children.
Do you think I ought to go back to the station?
No, Anne's old enough. She'll know her way.
I can't think how I lost her. She went ahead while I collected the luggage. She said that she would wait at the barrier.
Well, goodbye, Califer. At the same time next week.
It's no use, Doctor. We've failed.
I told you, I never give up.
I'm sorry. I can't afford to play this any
There
longer.
will be no charge.
If it's a question of money,
It isn't. It's a question of courage.
No, only a question of hope.
I've had this conversation with someone else before, Califer. I beg you.
I shall do nothing foolishly. I'm quite calm. You can feel my pulse.
It would be useless. I should only feel the mephedrine. If only you would help him, Mrs. Califer.
Look, I don't want my mother troubled.
I thought you didn't know what love was. Very well, but I'll phone you in the morning. Goodbye, Mrs. Califer.
He's a good man.
what did he mean? How could I help? What were you talking about before I came?
A potting shed where something happened. Mother, why did you leave my uncle out as well as me when my father was dying?
There had been a quarrel years ago.
I can't remember his face.
And I wish you'd give up trying. He belongs to the past, James, like your father and me. Old years are like old people. You should let them get weaker and weaker. Old age is not pretty or graceful except in books. Leave old years alone, James.
They won't leave me alone! Oh, listen, I think the truant has turned up.
Good afternoon, Uncle James.
Hello, Anne.
Where's Spot?
Where have you been, Anne?
Nowhere.
You said you would wait at the station.
I did.
You weren't there. I looked for you.
Somebody told me you were waiting outside, so I went outside and I didn't see you. And then I took the wrong bus.
Where have you been, Anne?
I told you. Nowhere.
Nothing and nowhere. It's the Califer touch.
And I thought you were such a truthful girl.
Oh, that was weeks ago.
What do you mean?
My vow is over. I can tell as many lies as I want to now.
But you oughtn't to want to.
You have to if people ask too many questions, or if you want to lure somebody to a certain house at a certain hour.
What on earth are you talking about now?
I can tell Uncle James. I can't tell you.
Why not?
You have grandmother eyes.
What are they?
Old and upright.
And mine?
Your eyes. Your eyes don't say anything. They just look away. Some people's eyes are always saying, cleanliness is next to godliness, or virtus laudata crescit.
Virtus?
It's the school motto. Virtue grows by praise. And whenever they say anything nice, they expect the virtue to grow. Automatically, like watering radishes. Where is Spot, Uncle?
Anne, I asked you.
He ran away.
There ought to be paw prints as well as fingerprints.
Can't you see the child's talking a lot of nonsense to hide
When did
something?
you last see him?
I don't know. I hardly knew when he was there. He wasn't a very good dog. He was very quiet.
You could advertise.
I suppose he's happier where he is.
Can't you see the child's play acting? And what have you been up to?
Didn't I tell you I'd make a good detective? When my vow was over. Any moment now we'll hear a ring, and that will be the answer to all our trouble.
Who's going to ring in?
Mrs. Potter.
Who's Mrs. Potter?
Potter's wife. Yesterday I sent her a telegram.
It's quite a habit of yours.
Well, you came with you when I telegrammed. And so, I expect will Mrs. Potter.
We are on our way to Wild Grove, and we have to catch a train in 3/4 of an hour.
Wild Grove can wait. I've just sent them a telegram too, saying that you'd been detained on urgent business. The real detective work came first. Finding out that Mrs. Potter hadn't passed on and where she lived. After that, everything was easy, even the telegram. Of course, she has quite a journey. We may have to wait for hours and hours, but it will be worth it, won't it? Because she'll tell us what Potter saw.
I'm just beginning to understand.
What's the child done?
Perhaps what Dr. Corser couldn't do.
There, I told you.
But Potter's dead.
This is Mrs. Potter.
What did you put in that telegram?
Dying. You can relieve your mind in torment. Come to tea time Thursday. We are dying, aren't we? All of us?
There were no lies in that telegram.
Should I go? Your hand, Uncle. It's shaky.
No,
You're afraid.
no, it's just the methadone.
I'll get the door.
No!
I will.
No. Leave it to me. I'm not afraid. Can't you wait just one moment at the door? You've been waiting for 30 years!
She's gone. We'll never know now.
There's a woman at the door, Culbertson.
Please tell her there's someone at home.
She said she has an urgent telegram from you.
Please, tell her it was a mistake, Mr. Corner. The child's still crying here. Give her this for her fare.
No, let her come. Corner.
You'll only hear a lot of nonsense fairy stories, James. Mr. Corner, my son is excited from his treatment. Send her away. She's not in a fit state.
She's come to see me, Corner, not my mother. I'll fetch her if you won't. Mother, you stood in front of a door like this once before, but not again.
What's the use, James? She wasn't there. She's only heard stories, exaggerated stories, Potter's stories. She knows nothing.
Then tell me yourself. All you know, in your words, before she comes.
It was so long ago.
I'll send her away if you'll tell.
I promised your father.
He's dead.
Can't I keep a promise to the dead?
Why should you, if they're really dead? You won't be reproached by a bit of bone. Mother, it's you or Mrs. Potter.
You won't remember me then. Oh yes, I remember you very well.
I'm Mr. Califer.
I was expecting a sick gentleman from the telegram. Are you Master John?
No, I'm James.
Oh,
But please, come in, Mrs. Potter. Please, sit down. I'd like to ask you some questions. There's something I have to find out.
What sort of questions, Master James?
Do you remember the summer of 1925?
All summers seem alike to me now, sir. Only warmer in those days.
This was a very different summer than all the rest. Do you remember my uncle, Father Califer?
Oh, yes, sir. A fine young man. You and he were very close. That is, before.
Before?
There's always trouble in families, sir.
Mrs. Potter, one day that summer, your husband went to the potting shed and saw something there. It was something that shocked him very much. He wouldn't have kept it in the dark from you, would he?
Potter and me never had secrets.
What did he tell you?
It's a long, long time ago, sir.
But you remember!
Potter said don't tell a soul, and I never have. For your poor dad's sake.
He's dead! You can tell me now.
But you know, sir, already. What's the good of raking around?
I've forgotten everything that happened.
You couldn't, sir. Not.
Mrs. Potter, I didn't send you that telegram, but I've got to know. My mind is in torment.
Ask your mother. Me, I'm only Potter's wife, Potter's widow, what I know about it.
Well, Mother? You see, my mother won't tell me. Mrs. Potter, if you owe anything to us...
I owe everything to the Califers, but if your mother doesn't want you to know...
Weren't we friends in those days?
You were always my favorite, Master James. It wasn't any fault of yours what happened. You were always a dear boy to me, but if your mother doesn't want you to know...
All right, I'll tell you. You had an accident in the potting shed.
An accident?
You slipped and fell. You were unconscious when Potter found you, and afterwards it made you strange.
Mad?
Not exactly mad. You didn't get on with your father. Family life wasn't good for you.
Is that all?
All except Potter's fairy stories.
And I want the fairy stories.
They weren't fairy stories, Mrs. Califer. Potter was no liar. Your husband knew that, and that's why he sent him away.
He was too old for his work. My husband gave him a good pension.
Oh, it was a good pension, but his heart was in his garden, and it killed him.
He spread stories.
It was the truth.
How could it be?
It's not the first time. There was Lazarus. They buried him.
Who is Lazarus?
Someone in a book.
A book you Califers aren't allowed to read. All right, I'll tell you how it was, Master James.
It was dinner time. Potter was late, near 2 o'clock. I knew something was wrong as soon as he came in. He had a coffin face. It was bad for Potter because he found you first.
Found me?
He lifted you down, poor boy.
Lifted me?
You were hanging there, sir. He used a cord from the playroom. He cut you down.
Was I?
There wasn't any life in you, sir.
No!
Forgive me, ma'am, but that's what Potter said.
But I am here. This is my room.
Potter did all he could. He was a great swimmer once, sir, and he knew all about artificial respiration. It wasn't any use, he said. Your heart was stopped. Potter was always a truthful man.
Last week I cut my hand. It bled.
Potter left the door open, and he looked up and he saw your uncle was standing there. Master James has killed himself, Potter said. You were stretched out there on the ground. You had no more life in you, Potter said, than a dead fish.
James, it was all a mistake. You don't take this seriously, James.
What's your story, Mother?
There was no story to tell. We didn't want you to remember how foolish you'd been. You were in a coma from shock, and when the doctor came, he revived you.
Not the doctor. Potter left you with your uncle, Master James.
Well, Potter did better than he knew. Perhaps he did save your life.
Potter never thought that. He was beyond human aid, Potter said.
Mother, where's my uncle now? You may as well tell me.
Even if I knew where he was, I wouldn't tell you. What use could he possibly be to you in the state you find him in?
Mother, you can't touch him up. There are directories to where one can find a priest's address.
I'll find him for you. Easier than finding Mrs. Potter.
No! Leave this to me.